He kōna ipurangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
Kia ora and welcome to this special Anzac Day edition of Māpuna, when we take a look back at an episode from 2023 in which I was very lucky to be able to visit the Greek island of Crete, an island I've been travelling to since the turn of the century. I've been many times and was able to meet and befriend many Cretans during that time who remember New Zealanders, and in particular the Māori Battalion, very fondly because of our service there during the Second World War, when our troops helped to defend the island against the invading German army in 1941. And although we weren't successful in repelling the invasion, the Cretans never forgot the bravery displayed by our troops and other troops from Australia and the United Kingdom during that battle. And it forged a bond between our two countries, which I see is still alive today, because my guide around the island for this episode was a young Cretan historian called Apostolides Panivirakis. And he, at the time, wasn't even 30 years old, and yet he was steeped in the history of the battle and was very respectful towards those countries and people from those countries, such as New Zealand, who fought in that war. He took me on a tour of famous sites around the western part of the island in a sun-drenched day in August of last year. So I hope you enjoy this episode and the music that I recorded along the way in the famous western city of Hanya. Whakarongo mai. E ngā iwi o te motu, tēnā rā koutou katoa, kia ora, yasu, and welcome to this very special edition of Māpuna, which comes to you from the Greek island of Crete. Ko Tama Muru tako ingoa. Now, the music you heard at the beginning was from an open-air concert in the old Venetian port city of Hanya in western Crete. And I'm now standing on the shoreline near Hanya. You can hear the waves of the Mediterranean gently rolling in on this beautiful stretch of coastline with a narrow coastal plain right next to it. And the reason I'm here is because it was in this area where soldiers from the 28th Māori Battalion and the rest of the New Zealand Division did battle with elite soldiers from Nazi Germany in 1941. Now, we'll be doing a tour of some of the famous battlefield sites, and they might be familiar to some of you with names like Maleme, Galatas, and we'll also be going to the scene of the 42nd Street bayonet charge by soldiers from the Māori Battalion. And our guide for this is a young Cretan historian, Apostolis Panivirakis. You'll hear from other Cretans who'll recount their own whānau experiences from the war, and also explain how more than 80 years on, it still has such a strong hold on the collective memory of the Cretan people, and also the enduring bond that was forged with the people of Aotearoa. We're standing on the Tavronitis Bridge, very close to Maleme airfield, which was fought over in 1941 on the 20th of May. And I'm joined by a local historian, born and raised in Crete, Apostolis, tēnā koe. Apostolis, first, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Apostolis, I'm 29 years old. I have been born and raised in Crete, and I have studied history and archaeology in the University of Crete. The Battle of Crete actually is my passion, and actually I have tried to make some tours about that, especially the Hania sector and the Rethymnon sector. And actually my travel agency operates on those areas, and those tours are pretty famous amongst the people from the British Commonwealth nations, especially Australia, New Zealand and England. And this tour about the Hania sector is the most famous ones because it is the main objective of the battle as well. It contains the Maleme cemetery, the Maleme airfield, and the Tavronitis area, which we are right now.
Now, of course, the New Zealand Division, the 28th Māori Battalion, was stationed just hundreds of meters from where we are
Exactly.
now. But just briefly, on the 20th of May 1941, early in the morning, just as the sun was coming up, this northern coastline that we're looking out at, you had dozens of German Junkers 52.
Sources are saying that the Junkers 52 came at a pace of 1 every 15 minutes, and they were transporting around 200 paratroopers each time. Most of them, they were having some gliders, some DFS 230s on their back as well. They were being towed by steel wire ropes. And actually those DFS crash landed on the riverbed of Tavronitsas Bridge as well.
And so, just briefly, I know this is a big question, but the Germans, why did they come?
Well, they came here basically, I must say, for two reasons. First of all, the Operation Marita was just ended. Actually, they succeeded in conquering Greece. So from the 6th of April till the 30th of April 1941, they succeeded in invading Greece. They were helping their Italians, I must say. And actually, they thought that Crete would have been in a very prominent position, stationed in a crossroad of the Mediterranean Sea, and actually it would have been beneficial for them to use it in the continuation of the war during the Middle East operations of them. But actually, secondly, I must say that they were a little bit wary of the Allies using the island in their operations as well. If the Allies used Crete as a stopover, basically the Ploiesti oil rigs in Romania, which they used, would have been within range of the British airplanes. So they were a little bit wary. They were fearing the military operation on the Allied side in Crete. So they decided to capture this island for this reason as well.
And so the bridge we're standing on, a lot of it is the original structure from
The steel
1941.
frame is original, and you can see the bullet fragments as well. There are a little bit of a shortage in sources, so we can't say for a fact about the wood on the bridge, because you don't see any fragments, any bullet fragments, even on the floor or down below the bridge. You don't see bullet fragments on the wood. But I would say for a certain fact that the metal is intact and it's from that era.
Now, where we are standing, if we put ourselves on that opening morning of the battle, what are we seeing right here?
Quite possibly, as I told you, those Junker 52, they were coming every 15 minutes, and the sky would have been full of paratroopers. Those paratroopers obviously had a primitive way of doing their military operations. The parachutes couldn't steer, so basically most of them, they landed where the plane left them. And actually they were carrying only their hand weapons as well. The ammunition would have come later on with second or third wave of paratroop drop into some special containers. So basically when they landed here and they approached Crete, they were basically most possibly carrying some grenades and obviously a Luger Parabellum, a handgun.
Okay, but the air would have been full of rifle and machine gun fire, as the New Zealanders and of course further down the coast would be opening up on them, firing on them as they came down.
They were firing as soon as they came down, and for sure local partisans and Cretan people actually helped them with whatever they had. Skiths, stones, sticks, you name it, they were helping the Allies too. So basically the Battle of Crete is pretty famous for three things. The first and most obvious is that the main objective of the battle, the Malem airfield, was utterly captured by air, by paratroopers that actually landed in Crete. So the main objective of the battle, it was paramount that they capture on air, and they did an airborne invasion, and they succeeded. The second very surprising thing about the Battle of Crete is the level of resistance and the fearful battles that the Cretans and the partisans, the civilians, did towards the Germans. They were not welcome here at all. And because of this Because of that fact, the German retributions and retaliations were a big thing as well. It was actually the first time in history that actually innocent, unarmed civilian population were actually killed as part of retributions because of the resistance towards the German troops, the German soldiers. Those three things are to be remembered because of the Battle of Crete.
And this display we're looking at, it mentions one village in particular, Kandanos.
Yes, we have a lot of villages that were ravaged after the 13th of May. So June onwards, we had a lot of mass innocent civilian executions as well. And the first massive innocent civilian execution because of the war in civilized Europe happened in Hania as well. It is the village of Kondomari, which is ironically enough pretty close to the Malem airfield, and there are many, many more. We see one right now, Kandanos, and there are other as well. To name a few, Kakopetros is another one, which is located right here. Malathiros is another one. But Kandanos was a very big example because after the occupation, the Germans tried to occupy Paleophora port, which is actually on the east side, on the far east side, on the far west side, on the far west side of Crete. And because of the resistance of Cretans, because Kandanos was on their way to Paleophora port, a mass execution and a mass actually bombing on this village, and huge fires happened because of this resistance of the people. They actually utterly destroyed the village of Kandanos. And we see here a very famous picture. It actually describes in German and in Greek what happened. It's ironic, but this wood right here is not a sign. It was actually part of a door of a home. So this is a door of a home, and actually it says in Greek that due to reprisals of armed civilian men and women, that they actually killed German soldiers, destroyed Kandanos village. So this is what it says here in the sign.
And actually it's interesting, we're looking at a map of Crete, a large map, and on the index it's sort of got red dots for martyred cities and villages. There's a lot of them, isn't there?
Indeed. To name a few, I told you already about Kakopetros, Malathiros, Kandanos, Alikianos. Some hundreds died there, I think close to 100 in June 1941. Skines is another martyric village as well nearby. This was Alikianos, Furnes and Skines are actually villages that are near the Prison Valley area, as the sources call. And as I told you, this was a first in war, to have people, innocent civilians, that they died because of German reprisals. And this was due to the fact of the fierceful resistance the Cretan people protrude during the Battle of Crete towards the German soldiers.
Now, there would have been reactions to these massacres. I'm guessing that the resistance became even more fierce as a result.
Well, actually, the Battle of Crete, those retaliations happened after the occupation. So basically, a vast majority of the Allied groups...
You mean after the battle?
After the battle. Those happened after May. So most of them are June. You can actually see Kandanos. The date was 3rd of June 1941. So you have to understand that most of the Allied groups would have been already evacuated through the south coast of Crete, primarily Horas Fakion port and Preveli beach, which is nearby. Who left behind was already a prisoner of war, I must say. And those prisoners of war were actually situated in Agi Apostoli beach, which is near Hania area. And then most of them, sources say that they would have been transported into concentration camps in Italy and the famous ones in Poland and in Germany as well.
So we're now driving past Maleme airfield is on our left, but on the right there's stacks of barbed wire and guard towers because Greek special forces now have a camp here right next to Maleme airfield. And Apostolis, this island has a history of resistance against invaders. You had the Venetians, you had the Ottoman Turks, you had the Germans. But tell me a little bit about the military presence in this island now.
Well, let me tell you that we really indeed learned our lesson. We're very severely fortified as an island. We have, ironically enough, next to the Maleme airfield where the main objective of the Battle of Crete were, we have right now an active Special Forces paratroopers camp. We have numerous Greek ground forces camps all over the Chania region. We have a naval base in Crete as well. We have only 2 in Greece, and one of them is situated in Suda Bay area. We have multiple NATO bases here as well. A missile firing installation too. We have a Greek state-of-the-art air force here with F-16s, and on top of that we have an active United States base here as well. So it's pretty normal for us Cretans to see nuclear aircraft carriers every once in a while here, because they come here to train and obviously to do the so-called R&R, the rest and recreation of the troops.
So basically you'd be pretty stupid to try and attack this island nowadays. No?
Well, we're part of the NATO as a country, and we're very, very proud of that. And to add to that, we are very, very fortified, as I told you. I think that we, long story short, we learned our lesson. Indeed.
And you yourself did military service?
Yes, it is mandatory in Greece to have military service, and I did 12 months in the Greek Air Force in a very serious combat wing in Greece, and I have to do the basic training as well. So every Greek youth, I must say, he is pretty affiliated with military. As I told you, it's mandatory and we have to do it.
If you were to describe the Cretans as a people, like in terms of their character, their temperament, what would you say?
Hard-raging people, in a good manner, I must say.
Hard-raging.
Hard-raging. We have a flair on ourselves, let's say. We're extremely hospitable, extremely friendly, but hard-raging as well, especially people local in the villagers. I would say they have a flair to them, but in a good manner. So basically, most of the time, actually always, they have to be one of the most hospitable people that you will ever meet, but just don't mess with them. So we have a kind of thing called vendetta here, which basically are fights between families if something goes wrong and there is a misunderstanding somewhere. But if you respect our culture, I think that we are one of the most hospitable nations in the world, and especially Cretans, they do have the hospitality in them. I firmly believe that.
I sense a familiarity with Māori people back in New Zealand.
Really? Is that good? That good?
There are similarities there, yeah, definitely.
That is good, but we're pretty hospitable. I'm not sure if this sounds a little bit weird, but I was in Malta 2 months ago, actually, for my small holidays prior of the Battle of Crete tours and travel agency season. And we were thirsty with my girlfriend. We arrived very late at night, and we just thought it was a good idea to discover the city of Valletta, the capital of Malta. Parenthesis, Malta is a country near Italy. And actually Malta is a country, but it's smaller than the region of Chania alone. Not Crete, the region of Chania. So imagine how big our island is. And actually we thought that it was a good idea to find a restaurant to take some water. We were absolutely thirsty, and we found only a restaurant. Everything else was closed, but one restaurant was about to close, and the owner was smoking outside with a waiter. We asked for a bottle of water. We obviously implied that we could pay or maybe give him a tip for his service. You know what his response was? His response was, here it's a restaurant, you're gonna pay €4 for that, I'm sorry. Do you know what will happen if you ask a Greek person or a restaurant owner here in Greece, if you ask him that you're thirsty and you can help of some water, he will give you maybe 72 bottles of water for free. I'm sure of that, because I'm just like that as well.
Yeah.
But those guys, they were demanding €4 to two innocent persons that they were actually being on the verge of dehydration. Out of stubbornness, we obviously had those €4 in our pockets, but out of stubbornness, we decided not to do this. And actually, we found a supermarket later on. But just to prove the point that we are pretty hospitable, I'm not talking about
bad things about Malta. It just happened, I'm sure of that. But here in Greece, generally, you will find the most hospitable people that you will ever meet, possibly. It has to do with the Mediterranean flair, I must say.
And actually, just while we're on the theme of Cretan identity, if I can put it that way, are you Cretans first and Greeks second? Or is that
no,
it?
I believe that we are Greeks. It was back in the beginning of the 20th century, we were part of an autonomous state. But we always demanded to unify Crete with Greece, and this happened in 1913. And it's over a century, and I believe that this has to be a good thing. We are a very proud part of Greece. And it would have been insulting to say that we feel more Cretans than Greeks, because Greece help us. I mean, all the infrastructures that it's here, it is being paid by Greek government. So it would have been a little bit insulting on saying that we feel Cretans as autonomous part, when actually the country played a vital role on our infrastructure in all vicinities of Crete. So I must say that we feel Greek and proud as well.
Okay. But, and actually, it sort of reminds me of your current Prime Minister, Kyriakos Mitsotakis.
This Prime Minister is a local.
Crete.
He's from Hania.
He's from Hania. And his father was also a Prime Minister, is that right?
He was, indeed.
Yeah.
He was. And he's from Hania. He has a home here. And he's a pretty common sight in some beaches on the Crete region as well. So we have very good bonds with our Prime Minister. He's here very, very often, I must say.
So we're in central Galatas now.
I would like you to see the how we say.
Now we're walking towards a small square next to the church, and there is a Pohutukawa tree here. So tell me about this Pohutukawa. How did it come to be here?
So this tree actually was being planted as a part of a commemoration event 20-something years ago. They have already left a plaque here that says so. So it was actually as a piece of a strong bond between New Zealand and Greece, actually. And as I have already described, they have exchanged trees. So we obviously gave the New Zealander team an olive tree, which is a tree who is being found in abundance in Crete, and in exchange they gave us an Opoutoukawa tree in order to plant right here. And as you can see, it's pretty big as well. It's pretty advanced.
I was just going to say it's flourishing. I mean, I'm just touching the trunk now. It must be. I'm 6'2". This thing is at least 15 feet.
Yes,
to the top.
It's more than 20 years of age. Despite this plaque is a little bit deteriorating. You can understand that it's more than 20 years ago. Most of the letters have been faded away, but you can understand here it's written in Greek that they were made as a present from the Majesty, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Ellen Clark.
Helen Clark. Yep, she was Prime Minister at the time.
And it was in 18th of May 2001, so it was 22 years ago.
Okay,
Obviously, it was May.
That would have made it the 60th anniversary of the battle.
Yep,
Yeah.
indeed. This happened 22 years ago.
And so what happened here at Galatas during the battle?
So a lot of New Zealanders were here, and it was on to the zone of battles of the Germans. A lot of Germans were actually having paratroopers drop here in the area of Galatas and the Prison Valley. And during the 24th, 25th and 26th of May, peaceful battles would have been done here in the area, in the village of Galatas, in order to occupy the village. At some point it was on the New Zealanders and the Allied side. At some point it was lost to the Germans. But what actually happened is that as soon as the Germans occupied the airport area, they would have transported a lot of ammunition, weapons, and especially the mountain troops, the fearful mountain troops that the Germans are pretty notorious of having, this Edelweiss section of the German army. they came for help. And actually, it was up to a point that if the New Zealanders would have tried a counterattack here, they would have put innocent lives at risk as well. So they decided to skip that part. And actually, the Galatas fell over to the German hands as well. And this led to the fact that the Germans, from the 26th onwards, they would have been able to progress through the whole area of Hania from now on, especially Suda Bay area and the areas facing east.
Do you have any accounts of the type of fighting that took place here? Like, was it... this is a hilltop village that we're looking at, quite narrow streets. I mean, was it hand-to-hand? Was it close quarter?
I believe it has to be a close encounter, for sure.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the haka?
Of course I have heard about the haka dance, and we'll talk about that later on as soon as we visit the 42nd Street. Okay. This was a pretty famous battle, but I'm going to speak about that when we actually step on the soil of the 42nd Street.
I'm being impatient again.
Thank you very much.
This actually was an incident that was surprising to Germans. The Germans were actually coming towards the evacuation troops that they were trying to evacuate Crete towards the south coast of Crete, Sfakia port to be precise. And actually this bayonet charge here happened from the New Zealanders. And actually it was a piece of heroic act. They had nothing to gain. The evacuation order has already been in place. They have nothing to gain. Sources say that they were out of food, and they were out of ammunition as well. But it was a heroic act that is right now very famous amongst history enthusiasts and primarily the families of victims. And it was a pretty serious one because on the sources they say that around 200 Germans died in this siege right here. 200 Germans. Anthony Beevor, which is a pretty famous writer about and researcher about the Battle of Crete, says that actually 141 Germans died here, and around 45 to 50 New Zealanders as well. But this actually, I think, played a role on the evacuation side of things, because I think that from this incident onwards, the Germans were a little bit wary. They were a little bit feared of the Anzacs after that, and they wouldn't try to do a very close encounter and interact with them on the evacuation side of things. So I believe that a big portion of lives have been saved because of this incident on the 27th of May. A lot of Australians and New Zealanders could reach the south coasts of Crete on time in order to be evacuated towards Alexandria because of that, because the Germans were not in close encounter with them after this incident of the 27th of May.
So we're on the street corner here. This is 42nd Street.
Yes.
And then it's
that road that is actually perpendicular. It faces the north.
Yeah. So we're looking out at a small square here with commemoration plaque. But here at 42nd Street, you mentioned the Māori Battalion earlier, the haka.
Yes.
What happened?
Well, as I told you, they were actually waiting for the Germans to come, and as you can see, there is a plaque with the haka dance right there on the right-hand side.
No.
And as I told you, it was a piece of heroism out of the New Zealanders in that incident. A lot of researchers have said that, and I'm going to tell you a phrase that I still remember that it was written in a leaflet in a commemoration event 3 years ago. And it goes like this. This sentence will remain to you, I believe. Undefeated men in a defeated army, which really says a lot for their efforts right here. And indeed, they were undefeated men in a defeated army. The Battle of Crete was coming to an end. The island was lost. Still, they decided to do this kind of a bayonet charge here, and they faced a lot of Germans here, and a lot of them died. As I told you, roughly 150 to 200 Germans died in this region alone.
But what can you tell me and tell the listeners about the events that's surrounding the charge? I mean, the haka itself, was it somewhere in this area we're looking at how they performed?
I presume that there has to be a field nearby that they did that, because they have reenacted this kind of an act 2 years ago. We had a big team of New Zealanders that they came here and they did the haka dance, and this happened in a place nearby, in a field nearby here. So it has to be the case in Battle of Crete here as well.
And so that the haka, of course, would be, the Germans wouldn't have known what the hell it was.
I don't think so, yeah.
You know, and of course it's very loud, it's very fierce. And then they charge. And what happens then? They're basically, Germans are killed, they flee.
The Germans were actually coming on the west side, as I told you, the region of Prison Valley and Malem Airport. So it was on that day that a lot of Germans lost their lives, and out of them that they survived, they went inland, okay? So, as I told you, a lot of casualties and a lot of rumors towards the fiercefulness of the Anzacs on this spot were spread through the German army. So this is why they won some precious hours, just enough for them to evacuate Crete onto the south coast.
We have completed our tour of the some of the main battlefields here in Western Crete, and we're now relaxing on the seashore, because of course there's many people know this part of Crete is now a tourist magnet with beautiful blue water, endless sunshine, cold beer and very good food and everything. But I'm still here with my trustworthy guide Apostolis, and of course we didn't get into too much was what happened after the battle. So after the Allied troops are evacuated from Sfakia on the south coast and they go to fight in the desert, but what's left behind is the Cretan resistance movement.
Yes, indeed.
And during that time they caused a lot of problems for the German occupiers. Can you just tell us a few stories about what happened in those years from 1941 to 45?
Well, a very big story that I presume all of our audience is kind of familiar is the abduction of General Crete, which happened in Heraklion area in the later years.
German general.
Yes, German general, and indeed they abduct him. He was taken hostage in a place near Archanes in Heraklion area. And actually this was a cooperation of Cretan partisans with the Special Operation Executive of the British Army. And this was quite a big resistance movement right there. And we also had a lot of stories about locals actually resisting and having fights with Germans. Out of local verbal history, I know that actually a lot of poor local civilians were trying to feed themselves, and actually they were stealing things from the camps, the German camps right here. I still remember my father telling me he was born in the 1955, but I suppose that the stories that he have heard are pretty accurate, and one of them is quite funny. Basically, every now and then a group of locals were trying to steal some flour out of some German trucks that they were transporting the flour, and especially during night time, they were asking some lighters from the German soldiers in order to light some cigarettes, and most of the times they were reluctant on giving them, and actually part of this had to do with Cretans trying to light up their cigarettes with the lights of their trucks, of the German trucks. You obviously cannot light a cigarette with the light of a truck, but basically what they didn't know is that on the back of the truck, some guys, they were looting the flour reserves of this truck, and basically it was just a game, an imitation game of the Cretans, that they were trying to actually postpone the Germans, that they were making fun of the Cretans trying to steal the flour. And this I still remember this story still to this day, I have to say.
So you're back with Māpuna, and you just heard a concert that was recorded just outside the Venetian walls in Hanya. And the artist was actually a local, and I'm joined by some locals who are very dear to me, because I have been coming to Stavros villas and apartments on the coast west of Hanya for more than a decade now. I've been very lucky to be able to come here and be hosted by the Padilaki whānau. And I'm joined around the table right now by my friend Nikos, my friend Harula, Katarina, actually, and Stelios. And we're going to have a little bit of a corridor about, first of all, Nikos, tēnā koe. Throughout this program, I did a tour with a local Cretan historian, Nikos. And I was just wanting to ask you about your family's experiences during and after the Battle of Crete.
Όταν ξέσπασε ο πόλεμος, η μητέρα μου ήταν 6 χρονών, ζούσε στο φουρνάδο Κισάμου. Οι πρώτες βόμβες έπεσαν στην περιοχή, γιατί ήταν κοντά στο αεροδρόμιο που υπήρχε εκεί στο Καστέλι.
Nico's mom was 6 years old when the war started. The first bomb started a few days after the invasion of the battle, and they were living in Kissamos, near Kissamos.
Η μητέρα μου μαζί με τα αδέρφια της ήταν μόνο εκείνη τη στιγμή που έπεσε πρώτη βόμβα στο σπίτι, και μια κυρία τα πήρε τα παιδιά αυτά και τα κατέβασε σε ένα σπήλαιο. Μετά από 2-3 μέρες η μητέρα της γύρισε και τα βρήκε στο σπήλαιο αυτό.
When the invasion started, when the bombing started, Nico's mom and her siblings were home alone, so the neighbor had to pick them up from the house and take them down to a cave for 3 days. Then the rest of the family reunited 3 days later.
Στο σπήλαιο αυτό τα φρόντισε ένας θείος της για 2-3 μέρες, και μετά ήρθε μια καλόγρια στο σπήλαιο αυτό και τους είπε ότι πρέπει να φύγουν μέχρι τις 12 η ώρα το βράδυ, γιατί θα πέφταν βόμβες στην περιοχή.
In the caves they were there for like 3 days. A local nun found them and told them that they should depart from the caves by 12 o'clock in the night, because there will be more bombings in the area coming.
Μετά ήρθε κάποιος κύριος και τα πήρε τα παιδιά αυτά και τα μετέφερε σε μια άλλη περιοχή για να γλιτώσουν από τις βόμβες των Γερμανών. Αλλά στην πορεία άρχισαν να πέφτουν και πυροβολισμοί, με αποτέλεσμα να κινδυνεύουν και τα 4 παιδιά μαζί με τη μητέρα τους, και τότε ο παππούς μου πήρε ένα άσπρο ρούχο που φορούσε η μητέρα μου και το έκανε σημαίακι για να δείξει ότι παραδίδονται.
So as they were departing from the caves, the bombing started, and they started getting a lot of bullets coming through their way. His grandfather had the bright idea of taking a white T-shirt and waving as a flag, so they would not get harmed.
Μετά πήγαν στο σπίτι και μόλις μπήκαν μέσα, αυτό που αντίκρισαν ήταν ότι το είχαν κάνει άνω κάτω οι Γερμανοί, είχαν πάρει όλα τα πράγματα. Την επόμενη μέρα η μητέρα τους έβαλε το φαγητό για να ψήσει, για να τα ταΐσει τα 4 παιδάκια, αλλά εκείνη την ώρα μπήκε ένας Γερμανός με το όπλο και πήγε να τους σκοτώσει. Αλλά εκείνη τη στιγμή ήρθε ένας θείος τους από δίπλα και έσωσε την οικογένεια ολόκληρη.
The next day, when the mom found them, took them back to their home. The house was a ruin. Everything was destroyed. But Nico's great grandmother was trying to make some food. At that time, a German soldier walked in with a gun. But luckily, their uncle was there, and he actually protected them.
Μετά περνούσαν οι μέρες στην περιοχή του Φουρνάδου, υπήρχε φτώχεια, κακομοιριά, δεν είχαν να φάνε, και η μητέρα μου σε ηλικία τώρα 7 χρόνων που ήταν, ένας θείος, εντός εισαγωγικών, την εκμεταλλευόταν και την έπαιρνε και πηγαίνανε στο φυλάκιο που υπήρχε εκεί κοντά και χόρευε πάνω σε ένα βαρέλι και τους έδινε διάφορα σοκολατάκια, παξιμάδια, για να μπορούν για λίγο να περάσουν τη μέρα αυτή και να μην πεινάνε πολύ.
So it was very difficult during that time. The family was very hungry because there was not enough food. And they had to do different things in order for the grandma was doing different things, like kind of like joking with the soldiers and try to get some, just for her to get some sweets and chocolates from the soldiers so they can actually feed the family.
Can I just ask quickly, because Nikos just said when the German soldier came up, the uncle protected them. What happened exactly?
Ο θείος μπήκε μέσα και τον παρακάλεσε να μην τους χτυπήσει, δεν έχουν ανακατευτεί σε τίποτα, σε ανταρσίες της περιοχής κτλ.
So the uncle was trying to, he could barely understand some words in German, and he was begging the soldier not to kill them because it's just a family and they were not involved in the resistance movement. So they were just kind of like a normal family, and the German took a pity and left them.
What's your view of the, I know there were Allied soldiers from many countries, but of the New Zealand contribution to the Battle of Crete?
Με τα βιβλία που έχουμε διαβάσει, τα ιστορικά βιβλία, οι συμμαχικές δυνάμεις βοήθησαν πάρα πολύ στη μάχη της Κρήτης και τους ευχαριστούμε αυτό. Και γνωρίζουμε επίσης ότι έφυγαν από το δρόμο 14 που είναι από τα Τσικαλαριά προς τα Σφακιά, όλες οι συμμαχικές δυνάμεις όταν αποχώρησαν από εδώ μαζί με το χρυσό της Ελλάδος για να σωθούν οι Νεοζηλανδοί, οι Άγγλοι, οι Αυστραλοί.
In general, very, very grateful for the Commonwealth kind of like soldiers that were here. Not only from the books of history that everyone's talking about, kind of like the heroic battles that they had during the Second World War, but at the same time, the people were really appreciative, knowing how far they came, especially like the New Zealanders and the Australians that traveled thousands of miles away to come and protect the island. There's also kind of like a very well-known path 14 that starts from Hania and goes all the way to Sfakia. When the Alliance soldiers were going towards Egypt, and they were trying to kind of like run away from kind of like the German soldiers. So very, very grateful for the help and support.
Actually, I want to throw this question out for all of you, because when I was talking to Apostolos, the historian, yesterday, and I said, how would he sum up the Cretans in terms of their character, in terms of their temperaments? He gave me an interesting answer. He said that they're a hard, raging people, and he said, I mean that in the nicest way. And he said, honest, hospitable, but don't mess with us.
Yeah.
How would you all view that statement?
Οι Κρητικοί σαν άνθρωποι είναι πολύ φιλόξενοι, αγαπούν τη φιλοξενία, να προσφέρουν, να βοηθήσουν, αλλά δεν θέλουν να τους πειράξεις με την έννοια να τους κοροϊδέψεις ή να τους κάνεις τον καλό και να μην είσαι σωστός μαζί τους.
I agree with Harila. So in general, Cretan people are very hospitable, and you've experienced it in the last 10 years you've been coming here. Everyone's very hospitable, very friendly, very open-minded. They will always go out of their way to actually help you. What Cretan people don't like is don't like to be fooled, or don't like to be taken advantage of. In general, kind of like, so they are very happy to open the door and let you in and kind of like eat, drink with them and kind of like do things, but they don't want to be, not taking advantage in a bad way, but more kind of like, they don't want to be fooled. They don't want to be kind of like messed around. Κατερίνα, πες την γνώμη σου.
Συμφωνώ και εγώ ότι είναι έντονη η φιλοξενία στους Κρητικούς. Πιστεύω ότι εκείνη την εποχή στο Δεύτερο Παγκόσμιο Πόλεμο θα ήταν ακόμα πιο έντονη. Σήμερα αυτό το συναντάμε πιο πολύ στα χωριά, γιατί ίσως και ο τουρισμός, ο έντονος στην πόλη, ίσως δεν έχει κάνει και λίγο κακό, αλλά υπάρχει αυτή η αγάπη, η απλότητα και η φιλοξενία ακόμα.
So, Katerina says that even exactly the same thing, that it's like very hospitable, very friendly. In the 1940s, when the war kind of like started, that will be even more evident in Crete. Probably this has changed a little bit with more tourism in the kind of like post 2000, but still you can still find it in the mountains. You can still find that kind of like hospitable people, despite all kind of like all the tourism surrounding us.
Nikos, just one question, because you're a school teacher. So, do you teach the Battle of Crete? Is it in your curriculum?
Στα βιβλία της ιστορίας του Δημοτικού Σχολείου, του Γυμνασίου και του Λυκείου αναφέρονται για τη μάχη της Κρήτης, αναφέρεται η προσφορά των συμμαχικών δυνάμεων και επίσης γιορτάζεται σε όλο το νησί και έχει 21 Μαΐου έχει αφιερωθεί αυτή η μέρα για τη μάχη της Κρήτης και την αξία της, όχι μόνο για την Κρήτη αλλά για όλο τον κόσμο.
So it's been taught at primary, secondary, and high school, as we call it here, the last 3 years of school. 21st of May is a bank holiday, so it's celebrating. Everyone's celebrating the Battle of Crete, and this is taught in whole of Greece, not just in Crete. So it's a big thing in general for at school for the kids.
So, Katerina, your great-grandfather, what happened to him during the war?
Κατά τη διάρκεια της γερμανικής κατοχής στο χωριό Αλικιανός, από όπου κατάγομαι, ο προπάπους μου μαζί με άλλους βέβαια άνδρες κατοίκους του χωριού συνελήφθησαν και στον ποταμό Κρήτη, όπου υπάρχει μια υπέροχη γέφυρα, εκεί από κάτω τους ανάγκασαν να σκάψουν τους ίδιους τους τάφους τους και αφού τους εκτέλεσαν τους έθαψαν μέσα εκεί. Ονομάζεται Χρήστος Δαμιανός.
In Katerina's situation is a bit more morbid. So after the invasion, they gathered every man and child above 17 years old. Πάνω από 17 χρονών, έτσι. Above 17 years old. They gathered them all together next to the river. They made them dig their own graves. They shot them and then they buried them there. And πόσο χρόνο ήταν ο προπάπους σου?
Χρήστος Δαμιανός.
Πόσο χρόνο?
Δεν ξέρω ακριβώς την ηλικία, αλλά ήταν, όχι, είχε οικογένεια, είχε τα
οικογένεια.
παιδιά του γιατί είχε γεννήσει τον παππού.
Katerina's great-grandfather had also a young child, Katerina's grandfather. So he was quite young, and his name was Christos Damianos.
Efaristo. And you've been listening to Māpuna on RNZ National, and it has come to you from the Greek island of Crete. And I'm about to have a toast with my Cretan hosts, and what we're drinking is the lovely local spirit called Sikudia. And I just want to say a ngā mihi nui, Māori to all of you. Thank you for hosting me for all this time. And
Thank you very much.
Efaristo Poli, I think it's Sase Efaristolos.
Yes,
Okay. And so we're going to have a toast of Sikudia. Here we go. Yamas. Yamas. And down the hatch.
How do you say in
Māori.
Yamas?
Yamas.
We actually don't have one.
Really?
We have sort of a variation on cheers, which is cheer bro, cheer. But anyway, that's fantastic, and I just wanted to once again thank my hosts. They've been my hosts many times in the past here at Stavros Villas in Gerani, the village west of Hanya. In the meantime, kia tauterangi Māori e, te hewa Māori ora, kia tātou katoa.